Our home garden is large because we are growing a year's supply of food. It is as big as, if not larger than, some market gardens. Because of the large scale, planting is not just a one-day event. It takes us several weeks. So we're on week 2 of planting our warm season crops. We need to plant cucumbers this week, melons, watermelons. We have squash to plant, carrots, and we are planting 700 corn seeds in soil blocks. Getting all our plants in the ground is only half the battle though. We need to make sure that we keep everything alive. So to make sure all of the effort and work is worth it, we are going to test out a new way of protecting our plants and kind of experiment with that, and we're going to show you how that goes. And as we are planting, we are going to continue sharing the raw numbers we use to calculate how much to plant for a year's supply of food.
We checked the weather and it's showing that it's going to start staying above 80 degrees. And so that is the time when we put the shade cloth on our tunnels. So we did that on this one that we're in this morning to help keep it a little cooler in here. It's still hot. Needless to say, we're back out here and we're ready to start laying paper down on this row that we prepped and got all the weeds out of. We're going to plant cucumbers and maybe some carrots at the end of the row if we finish with the cucumbers.
We were so excited to get our cucumbers and carrots planted that we totally forgot that we needed to lay down some compost and add some fertilizer. So Cam put down all of the compost down this row. We just did about an inch, maybe half an inch thick all the way down. And now it's time to put down some fertilizer. For where we are planting the cucumbers, I'm going to be using some blood meal as fertilizer. For the area where we're planting the carrots, they don't like as much nitrogen as blood meal has. So I'm using a different kind. I have a little bit of leftover fertilizer from when I planted the potatoes. I got a very specific fertilizer for them. And I think it's going to work really well for the carrots because they're also a root crop, so they like a lot of potassium, which this fertilizer has. Putting the paper here for the cucumbers was a non-negotiable for us for several reasons. Of course, we don't want to have to pick weeds. This is preventing that, but also because we're going to be putting insect netting over this. So once everything's in place, we don't want to mess around under the insect netting. So it's very important to have something to prevent weeds during that time. One thing that we always kind of forget, or at least the last couple of times, we're laying down paper and all of a sudden I'm like, we can't plant yet because we got to wet down this paper and let it dry, because the paper, it shrinks pretty significantly. Enough that on the ends, at least, that the holes would like shift completely. So in order to not waste our time or our seeds, we're going to make sure we wet this down and let it dry before we plant. And it's getting late anyway, we need to go make dinners. So we're just going to finish staking this all down, and then tomorrow we'll come out and we'll finish planting and doing the carrots and all of that stuff. So we wet down this weed prevention paper and let it dry. So now we are ready to plant because it's all shrunken up the way it's going to go. And we've got two kinds of cucumbers that we're planting. One is H19 Little Leaf. This is for pickling. And then we have Green Finger, which is for slicing. For the pickling cucumbers, I usually just let them run along the ground because I find I get more yield that way. For the slicers, we are going to do most, if not all of them, on trellises. We have this trellis system already set up in our tunnel. Cam did this last year and we are using the clipper system for this. So what we're doing is we are going to be planting every other hole, and in between each one I'm going to plant some flowers there. We do not need this many cucumbers. We actually have a lot of canned pickles left from last year, and really all that we're growing for this year is fresh eating cucumbers. We need some for fermentation, and we really like refrigerator pickles as well. So it's going to be those things, and maybe we'll can just a few if we have any excess. In the past, we have started our cucumbers, squash, watermelon all in soil blocks this year. I just never really got around to it. So we are direct sowing. Really, it only saves you a couple weeks, which really matters if you're in a colder area where you don't have a long growing season. But for us here, it's not a big deal.
So we're moving on to the pickling cucumbers now. Last year, we harvested 100 pounds of pickling cucumbers from 10 plants. So about 10 pounds per plant. And we do have a lot of those left in the pantry still. And so it was a little bit too much. If you do the backwards math, 100 pounds of cucumbers is right around 2 pounds per week for our family. And that's just a lot. We either need to eat a lot more hamburgers with pickles on them or just do less this year. So we're doing less this year. This year, we're going to plant 6 plants of these pickling cucumbers. So that will cut our total yield down to about 60 pounds if we average the same per plant as we did last year. So that gives us a little over 1 pound per week to eat. And that's a much more manageable number for our family, just knowing how much we go through. And remember too, these are just for pickles. We mainly consume those in the summer and the fall. We don't really eat them in the winter. I don't know why. It's just, there's just not a lot of meals, I guess, that take pickles in wintertime.
For the slicing cucumbers, we did 10 plants, which is actually a lot more than what we need because they yield around the same as the pickling cucumbers, about 10 pounds, sometimes up to 20 pounds per plant, but we usually average about 10. So I am doing a little bit more than what we need because I'm doing an experiment with these this year. So I need to have enough to do 2 separate groups. We are planting marigolds in between each of these cucumber plants, and this variety is called Orange Flame. Marigolds are a good companion plant for cucumbers. They're really a good companion plant for just about everything, but the cucumbers especially because they attract a lot of beneficial bugs and they help keep away the cucumber beetles. I am planting between like 3 and 7 cucumber seeds per hole just because, one, I have a lot of cucumber seeds that need to be used, but also I like to have backups in case some of them don't sprout. And then once they do sprout, I will thin those out to just 1, maybe 2 plants per hole, but probably I'll just keep it to 1. Before we move on too far with planting other things, we still have carrot seeds to plant. We decided that it would be good to prep the areas for the watermelon and where the squash is going to go. We're done with the weeding in here, so now all that's left is putting down another layer of compost on the top of this. Usually we do about 1 inch thick. Then on top of that, we'll lay out some paper, we'll stake everything down, water it all down, and then we will plant in here tomorrow. We got what we wanted to get done in here today. We got this all put out and now it's time to just put the water on it so it can shrink. And tomorrow we will plant, which is good. It's very hot in this tunnel. We're gonna go over to the other one and finish planting our carrots now. We've got our Jang seeder. This makes carrot planting so easy. This is the best at planting really tiny seeds. It does a beautiful job. So we're planting new Carota carrots. We do 2 successions of carrots per year, and usually we're just doing a smaller section. So last year we did 84 row feet of carrots in the fall, and we harvested probably 75 pounds of carrots from that 84 row feet. So it's nearly 1 pound of carrots per row feet. Right now we're doing a 20-foot length of garden bed. This garden bed is 30 inches wide and we're doing 3 rows across that. So it is 60 row feet of carrots. If we're close to what we got last year, we should get 50 pounds or so. This is the second time that I am going over these rows. Kind of same as the beans. When I use a seeder, I like to go over it twice because I'd rather have too much there than not enough.
For some quick numbers on the carrots, we grew 125 pounds last year, harvested 125 pounds, and we did 50 pounds in the spring and 75 pounds in the fall. So 125 pounds of carrots breaks down to about 2.5 pounds of carrots per week.
We eat carrots mostly in the wintertime because they store so well, and we usually end up eating so many that by the time summer rolls around and we have tomatoes and cucumbers and so many other things, we're not eating a lot of carrots. So the majority of our carrot consumption is in the fall and winter time. And we grow some in the spring just because we want a few for snacking, but really because we're doing a lot of preserving in the summertime and late summer. And it's nice to be able to have carrots to put into some of the things that we preserve. The last step is to get some burlap on these carrots. Carrots take longer than most seeds to germinate, so it's really important to keep them moist and covered the whole time. Burlap is one option. There are several different things that you could use. Some people like to put a board on top of the carrots or cardboard, or you can even use silage tarp. We've used all of those things, but my personal favorite is the burlap because we have a lot of pill bugs here or roly-polies, especially in the springtime. So we want to avoid having them come and eat all of our carrot seedlings. Anytime you use a board or something like completely solid, it just attracts hundreds of the pill bugs and they can do a lot of damage. A lot of people think they don't do any damage. They really can, especially if you have high numbers. So that's why I use this burlap instead. We have a lot of things that we do every single day, from being in the garden to cooking, preserving. Sometimes we run into town, so we need clothing that is versatile and fits with everything that we do. So that's why I'm so excited that today's video sponsor is Halara. I actually first heard about them at our recent family reunion that we had. My sister Susie, she had on the cutest pants and I said, "Where did you get those?" And she said, "Halara." And then my mom was right there and she's like, "I have lots of pairs of those too." So since then I have bought a bunch of things, with the exception of my overalls. Basically my whole wardrobe is Halara, including what I am wearing right now. Their whole goal is to make sure your clothes never hold you back, and they focus on movement and confidence, which is why their pieces are so stretchy and comfortable. I've been wearing their UltraSculpt leggings as I do my morning runs, and my favorite part is that they are comfortable everywhere, including the waistline. There's no bands that dig in, and they have functional pockets as well. I love that they offer a huge range of colors and sizes from extra small to 4X, so there's truly something for everyone, and they've managed to keep everything affordable without sacrificing quality. These are my favorite pair of jeans. I love that they are low-rise, this asymmetrical shape. I thought it would be kind of weird, but it's actually really flattering on your body. These are flex denim, and they are different than any other jeans because normally jeans are like so tight and restrictive. I love how stretchy these are. They're stretchy everywhere. So it's almost like you're wearing like yoga pants all day long, but they look nice. I've been wearing these pants on hot days and they are so nice for the summer. They have that linen feel and they're super airy. And I also love that they have this elastic waistband. It's very nice. So if you're looking for a versatile and comfortable wardrobe, check out Halara. Use code SEASON for 20% off all full price items. And I have another discount code for you guys and all the links down in the video description. Let me know in the comments which of these pieces was your favorite. And thank you so much, Halara, for sponsoring this video.
It's really jumpy.
Oh, don't do that, no.
Okay. Look how far. I won't come any closer to you.
Where did you find that?
In the chicken, in the meat bird A-frames.
Oh, okay.
I was just kidding.
There are several things we grow that are susceptible to cucumber beetles and squash bugs. Those are huge pests for us. They do a lot of damage and they can just kill off an entire planting that we have. So because we put so much effort into planting and all of that stuff, we want to make sure that they survive for as long as possible. So last year, one of the things that I did that actually worked really well was I put insect netting over the top of our cucumbers and squash. So we're doing the same this year. I'm gonna make sure we get it on top of cucumbers, squash, and the melons. Eventually we do need to take the insect netting off because once everything blossoms, it needs to be pollinated. But having the insect netting on at the beginning, it really helps get all of these plants a good start. And it makes you go as long as you possibly can before the bugs can get to it. So I found last year it was super helpful, hoping for the same results again this year. It might not be enough. We were trying to reuse the insect netting that we used last year, but it turns out it was just a little bit too short. So we're going to use some new stuff. I have more on this roll, so we'll just make sure we roll it out so that it's long enough, and this other stuff, we'll just reuse it somewhere else. One of the most important parts of insect netting is making sure that there are no spots where an insect could actually get in and under that. Even though this whole area is covered, if there is even one small hole or one small part of it that is lifted up, the bugs that you are trying to keep out will find their way in, and then they will be stuck in there and do a bunch of damage. So last year what we did is we used roll bags down the sides of this because we had the same situation where we had paper down. So the most effective way to keep insects out is to use soil. But since we have the paper there, I didn't want to use soil. I had an idea this year that's a little bit different. And I was thinking in my head, I want something that sort of like conforms to the ground but acts as a weight. So my first thought was some sort of like long sandbag thing that I could put down all the way down this. Then I had the idea, well, what if I use like some kind of a hose? So this is a pool backwash hose, and this is totally experimental. We do not know if this is going to work. We ordered 2 of these 50-foot long hoses just to test out. We have some clamps, and we're gonna clamp down the ends and fill it with water to see if it's heavy enough to hold this down and also conforms to the ground and makes it so there's no spaces in between any of these areas. The other reason I'm using this is because I really wanted to avoid using anchor pins. That's also an option with insect netting, but I have found when I've used that the anchor pins, they end up tearing the fabric and the insects can get in anyway. So I am hoping that this works, but we're about to find out. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take the end of this hose and then fold it over a few times. And then we're gonna take this spring clamp and then clamp it shut. So the next step is to fill this hose with water, and then we'll clamp it down on this end, and hopefully it weighs this thing down. Overall, I would say this experiment has been a success. It is doing exactly what I wanted it to do, which was flex with the bumps in the ground, and the water seems to have enough weight to hold down the insect netting. Granted, we are inside the tunnel, so we don't get quite as much wind in here, but I'm very hopeful that this will be a good long-term solution. There are 2 other like big pros of what we just did. One is that it really only took a few minutes. And normally when we're taking sandbags and laying them all down, it takes quite a bit longer to like get everything set and just haul things around. So that was pretty awesome. It didn't take very long to set up. And the other thing is, once we're done, all we have to do is let out the water, and we have the same thing where it's just not very heavy or cumbersome to like pick up and take away. After we finished with the cucumbers, we went ahead and got the area that we are planting winter and summer squash all prepped and ready to go. So the first thing that we did is we weeded the whole area. Then we were about to put paper down, and we remembered that we needed to put compost and fertilizer down first. So we're putting a 1-inch layer of compost, kind of like everywhere else, and then some blood meal down. Then we finally got the paper rolled back out, and I ran out of my holy paper. I like to use the 1 row down the middle and 18 inches apart for this. I have other patterns, but the best one for the squash is the 1 by 18. So we decided the next best thing was just to roll out a full sheet, and then we will punch holes ourselves tomorrow. Sweet corn is another one of our bigger plantings, so we really need to make sure we have enough for a year's supply. Over the years, I've learned that I really like to start corn in soil blocks and transplant them, because usually I'm growing corn in an area where it has had a cover crop, so the seeds, they just don't get good soil contact and they don't have good germination. Yesterday we did some calculations using our garden planner seed time and laid out all of the corn where it's going to go and how much we're planning on planting each row. So it comes out to about 700 corn plants, which corn can yield 1 to 2 ears per plant. In theory, we could get anywhere from 700 to 1,400 ears of corn. That would be awesome if that actually happened.
I can't think of anything better than fresh corn eaten right off the cob. We haven't had it for a while, so that's why I'm getting really hungry right now. For the numbers, when corn is in season, we're probably eating corn for dinner 3 to 4 times a week. We just absolutely love it. For our family, we probably do I would say 3 ears of corn per person per dinner time. If we're doing that 3 times a week for our family of 8, that's 72 ears of corn per week for roughly the 3 weeks of the year that corn is in season and ready for picking. So that's 216 ears of corn just eating fresh. In years past, that's probably close to what we've been able to harvest. Since we've eaten it all fresh, we haven't really had much to put in the freezer, and we'd love to put stuff in the freezer. So for that to happen, we would love to have anything more than 200 to 300 ears of corn so we can eat what we want and put the rest in the freezer.
Since we're planting around 700 plants, that means we need to make enough soil blocks for 700 plants, which is kind of crazy. It's more than we have ever done. We figured out that we need probably around 20 of our wooden trays for the soil blocks. It fits like roughly between like 36 and 40 soil blocks. Once the corn germinates, we really don't wait that long. It's usually a week, maybe a little bit more than that, and then we get them planted in the ground. So I'm planting 1 pound of Who Gets Kissed sweet corn, and they say on this bag that it is approximately 2,425 seeds a pound, and the germination rate is 89%. So that means that 11% of these seeds probably are not going to germinate, so I need to plant extra for that. And that also means that I have a lot of extra seeds. So I have enough to plant the corn 2 per soil block, but I'm not actually gonna do that because I don't wanna go back and thin these. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to plant several extra trays instead to account for the fact that not all of these seeds are gonna germinate. After wetting down and letting the paper dry in here, we are ready to plant all of our melons. We have several different kinds. Let me take out my squash. We have Leland, Sweet Glow, watermelon. This is new for us this year. And then we have Sugar Dew and Sweet Passion melon. So we discussed and decided that we are going to plant 15 of this Leland Sweet Glow watermelon plant and 10 of each of these other melons. This is a 50-foot long area, and each of these holes is 18 inches apart. That's the spacing that we're doing. We're gonna start with probably 2 to 3 in each hole, and then we'll thin them down to 1. We still have a few more things that we need to do in here. After we plant, we need to put down more paper on both of the sides. We did this last year, and it was very effective in this tunnel, especially because the watermelon and other melons, they're just gonna sprawl everywhere, so they need lots of space, and it's just a pain to weed under watermelon, so it's just great to cover it up first. The other thing that we need to do is we're going to do the same treatment for the watermelon that we did for our cucumbers. We're going to get hoops and insect netting set up, and I do need to order more of those lay flat hoses because that seemed to work really well. We just want to make sure we get it covered before everything sprouts, because that's when the bugs move in.
We love watermelon. I think I probably say that about every food that we grow here. We're gonna plant 15 watermelon plants, as Becky said, and they'll each grow from 2 to 4 watermelons that range from 10 to 20 pounds. That'll give us, with our estimates, around 450 pounds of watermelon. I know that sounds like a lot, but they're roughly the size of what you get at the store. We will eat a ton of them fresh. If there's anything extra, we'll usually put it in the blender and just make a watermelon juice that we'll use in spritzers and slushies and things like that. So we're planting 10 plants each of the cantaloupe and the honeydew, and those will each produce right around 3 fruits per plant, and those fruits will be about 3 pounds each. And so we'll get 60 fruits that will total about 180 pounds. Similar to the watermelons, we will eat most of these cantaloupes and honeydews fresh, but if we do have any extra, we'll either freeze them, put them in smoothies, or make ice cream slushies out of them.
We're at the home stretch now, ready to plant our squash. We are planting 2 types of winter squash and 1 type of summer squash. This summer squash can actually turn into a winter squash if you let it stay on the vine. Our purpose is to grow it as a summer squash. I left 1 to mature and become a winter squash, and we tested it out the taste is not great. So we'll just keep this one as our summer squash to eat fresh. The other two are the winter squash, and this one's honey patch. I've grown this one before. We love this one. I love this one at least. It grows 1/2 pound to 1 pound fruits, sort of like a butternut, but just way sweeter. For the honey patch squash, they average between like 6 and 10 squash per plant. And then the Lodi squash, it is very similar in size. They're just 1/2 pound. And you get a similar amount per plant. So we need to plant a lot of these to be able to get our full year supply.
For the Lodi and the honey patch squash, they kind of yield and grow roughly the same amount, so I'm going to group them together for the numbers. They each yield about 6 to 10 fruits per plant, and we tend to do our math on the low side of that just to make sure we plant enough. These smaller squash store in the pantry for about 20 weeks, and that's coincidentally about the length of our winter season here when we're consuming these. We eat probably 6 per dinner time for our family, and we eat these about once every other week. So we need 10 dinners over the span of that winter season to fill with squash. If my math's right, we need about 60 of these squash to store over winter so we can have them for our year supply. So that means that we need 10 plants at a minimum to make sure we have enough of the squash for winter. So next up is the zucchino rampicante. No, I don't speak Spanish or Italian or wherever that's. Where's it from? French? That one, we grew 4 plants last year and yielded around 80 pounds of squash from that, which was honestly for us a little more than we needed. That said, we're probably still going to plant 4 this year because it's a nice safeguard to have at least a couple plants in case some of them get diseased or eaten or just don't really produce well. If you plant 1 or 2, it's like you're at high risk of losing everything if they both don't make it.
So that's all the planting we're going to be able to fit into this week. We still have some planting to do. We still have some sweet potatoes and our peppers and a couple other things. Those will come a little bit later, but next week we are going to be sharing an update on this whole space. So we're going to give you a tour of everything, get you caught up on how the fruit is doing. We've been harvesting some of these strawberries, all of our perennial plants, some of the other things that we've planted without really sharing yet. So all of that comes out next week.